of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds. Bible with Cicero. Chapter 101. Saturday. Part 7. Changed back into his gi, his embarrassment mostly dimmed, Shouta carefully hung the crimson silks his lover had somehow already purchased, or so the attendant he'd tried to give them back to had said, next to the locker he'd abandoned given for his personal items. His eyes narrowed at his phone. Aizawa Shouta.
You'll never guess who I've just been talking to, let alone what we've been talking about, mister.
He typed in a private message.
Or maybe you would. Care to look at the group chat,
1 second. 2. 3. Yagito Jinori.
Ah! Shouta-kun, I am so sorry.
Snickering, his eyes rolling fondly at the other, mimicking his classic nervous laugh even across a text message. The eatery owner felt a smirk lightly curve his lips. Aizawa Shouta.
Sorry enough to give me a foot rub later.
Yagito Shinori.
It had been my pleasure.
Idiot. He mumbled through a chuckle.
You're not supposed to enjoy a punishment,
he murmured fondly before signing off, placing his phone into the locker atop his kit bag and heading out of the room, where a still snickering Atsuhiro and a pleasantly grinning Mirai were waiting for him. I've just finished a call with Naomasa, the future seer advised as they began to walk back to the main area, the wide sweeping corridors, arena empty bar, a few members of staff, and undercover officers. All of the junior matches have been decided, and so far, everything's running as scheduled. He assured his taller form regarding him gently. How are you holding up? Blinking, he let out a quiet sigh as the double doors which led back to the dojo proper appeared.
I'll feel a whole lot better when I see that man in handcuffs,
he replied honestly, his eyes narrowing.
Those kids will have a long road to travel in terms of recovery, so right now, I'm just grateful that they're here,
he admitted through a huff. Even a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step and all that, you know. Standing at the back wall of the main dojo, his head having inclined at Takeo, Shouta let out a calming breath. It was truly a treat to watch the young man wield his preferred weapon, and, a shushed awe rippling around the crowd, he went to quietly ask Mirai about the fixtures for the children when he blinked. Suddenly he had a feeling of being watched. Frowning lightly, he carefully assessed the arena just as his little brother got into position. Narrowing his gaze a touch, it was with no small amount of chagrin that he realized it was Todoroki Enji glaring at him from afar. Ah! His hair was down. He was stood next to Mirai, and sure he wasn't in his fancy suit, but he was wearing blue, wasn't he? He wasn't too surprised by the animosity he saw in that pinched, narrowed gaze either. Not many people, he should imagine, got to throw water over Endeavor and get away with it. As though you noticed him looking this way as well. Sharing a quiet chuckle with the pro, the older man's lover also sniggering, Shouta made a point of ignoring the bastard and focusing on his brother. If he'd had any idea, even the slightest inkling, that the oldest Todoroki had inflicted such dire harm on the people he'd cared about at the time, well, the Captain Special, as the kids liked to call it, would have been on offer. It was considered an illegal move under tournament guidelines, of course. However, he still held out the hope of getting to face off against the man during the afternoon adult matchups in the black belt category. The prick might be a Judan holder, but with no quirks involved and his career history of fighting people usually twice his height and weight, well, even just being able to suck the guy in his smug brick face would be enough for him. After Takeo and his partners had finished their admittedly flawless performance, the judges rose from their seats to announce, as per tournament standards, the order of the day. The children and teenagers would now shuffle off to Dojo 2 and 3 for their respective matches, whilst the adults could spar, train, or wander around the many market-esque stalls filled with items of interest to purchase as souvenirs, keepsakes, and presents for loved ones. There were quite a few international visitors who'd come purely for the event, after all, so it was nice that they could shop a little too.
We thank you for your company and participation and the respectful conduct we know that will prevail over today's tournaments.
It was 10:30. The children's events would conclude at 12:30, and then after presenting the winners and runner-ups with trophies, the adults could display their prowess from 13:30 onwards upon the main stage.
We'd also like to wish all of our competitors well in their matches. We know that you'll do your sensei and the history of your chosen art proud.
By this time, of course, all 3 of the Todoroki children would be safely away. They'd be sat in the ceremonial tea room with their oldest brother and mother. Nezu would show them UA through a video the former Project Reformation teens and Tat had made for them alongside his own teens and study group. They'd done an excellent job and had showed off the care packages they'd made, each one dapped with a card. Every bed, too, had a plush cat or teddy bear atop it, too. Similarly, social workers would soothe and reassure them before the police force would carefully and gently make them aware of the situation. Cautiously and softly prepare them for the inevitable, to tell them it was their right to give testimony or not, that they had the power to speak freely should they choose, for Todoroki Enji would be arrested today. Todoroki Enji would find that his law firm, one of the best that Tokyo had to offer, had already been hired by Dabi and Rei, meaning that he couldn't count on them for their support or services thanks to it being a conflict of interest. Todoroki Enji would be held on several counts with the most serious crimes stemming from physical abuse, domestic abuse, psychological abuse, unlawful imprisonment, child endangerment, battery, assault, and grievous bodily harm. Even if they could only pin him down for 5 or 6 of those hideous atrocities, that would be enough to send him away for years, and to Tartarus no less. As the number 2 pro, he was far too dangerous to be placed into a regular prison. Plus, given the nature of his crimes, well, once the trial went public, he'd never be considered a hero again, would he? No. No. For these were the acts of villains, weren't they? Hell, there were even criminal syndicates who'd shun, punish, or kill anyone in their own organizations who mistreated children in any capacity. Not that he approved of such things, of course. However, if Todoroki thought even for 1 second that he'd get through the next few months unscathed, that his money or fame could save him, then he had another thing coming, for he wouldn't rest until Endeavor's fame, name, and reputation was thoroughly dragged through the mud. Therefore, let the games begin! Waving up at his fiancée and their friends in the stands, he bid Atsuhiro and Mirai goodbye. They were heading towards one of the small conference rooms where Kenji-san and the Plan B task force were waiting should Endeavor try to leave. However, his dark eyes giving the private booth the bastard had set in a cautious glance, he could see the prick standing over his children, no doubt barking about failure not being an option, before dismissing them with curt gesture of his hands. It didn't look like he wanted to leave any time soon, at least. The nannies, stiffening to attention like soldiers in an army, also offered him bows before fluttering around the children and ferrying them towards the dojo they would compete in. Step 1, of course, was getting those people out of the way. Quietly, they'd be called to one side or another by an official. Then they'd be escorted to a similarly small conference room where detectives would begin questioning them. Step 2, though, wouldn't begin until Todoroki, Fuyumi, Natsuo, and Shoto either lost a match, needed medical attention, or won, penultimately, at the end of the single elimination style brackets that were being used for the 7-9, 10-14, 15-19, and adult groups that had been lined up for today. Therefore, to begin with, there'd be 6 matches going on at once, and with every elimination, the winner would get a 15-minute break before meeting the winner of the next bracket, and so on until, for all 4 age-based brackets, there'd be only 2 competitors left. Only one person would be crowned the overall winner of each age set. There were medals and trophies for techniques used, overall proficiency, and special moves as well, though, so everyone had a chance to achieve something. Not that he personally cared about such things. However, he knew that his kids were excited about their prospects, and it'd be wonderful if they could win what they wanted. Oh no, excuse me, sir? Blinking out of his thoughts, Shouta stopped his sneakered feet to regard a member of the tournament staff who had jogged over to him whilst the other people he'd been walking with continued on their way.
Yes,
He replied, his mind conscious of the time. All of his tots would be starting their matches in 10 minutes, and he was needed to referee the 10 to 14-year-olds too.
Todoroki Enchi would like to speak to you for a moment, sir.
Feeling his eyebrows creep toward his hairline, the eatery owner turned to look for the towering dickhead, the urge to huff and roll his eyes almost too strong to ignore, for after a quick search he found the smug prick stretching on the main stage. From the sheepish, upset, and frightened looks he could see plastered across the faces of a small group scampering away from him, he wasn't giving out autographs either. What a fucking bastard.
Tell him I'm busy.
He shrugged.
I have a job to do, so if you'll please excuse me.
But, sir, he's...
I'm well aware of who he is.
He returned quietly, the young man's face paling with surprise as they regarded each other.
And he shouldn't feel pressured or bullied into doing his bidding. Go speak to your manager, all right? They get paid a better salary than you, so they can deal with him, can't they?
Yes. Yes, I think I will. Thank you, sir. The lad returned with a bow before spinning on his heel and hightailing it away from where Todoroki was stood. Todoroki, who was watching him. Todoroki, who seemed displeased to be kept waiting. Offering him a grin, he similarly resumed his walk towards the tunnel, his mind on better things. Upon reflection, it was a pity that some of the judges were still lingering on their dais, really. He would have loved to flip the guy off with his middle finger, as childish and illogical as such an act was. The League of Cafe was really starting to rub off on him, were they? Standing together, as they were wont to do, the study group and their senpais tried their best not to stare as the three children they were hoping to help walked into the waiting area they all been asked to gather in, their eyes slanting to and from each other. This dojo wasn't the same size as the one they'd just been in to watch Shoni and Takeo-senpai, but it was the same shape. A large rectangular stage sat in the center with a large board hosting the matchups suspended overhead. Around the platform, however, were 4 bays, 3 for them to sit in, and 1 set up as a medical station, should anyone need first aid. Then, bordering the setup, tiered seats spaced up for 7 rows that were rapidly filling with a handful of proud parents, proud senseis, and other family members, alongside a few talent scouts, too. This event, since children were involved, wasn't open to the public. Everyone in attendance today had been vetted for obvious reasons, and even though they knew the true reasons why they were here, all of them couldn't help their combined excitement. Even as the Todoroki children were marched past them to an arena that had been sectioned off by red velvet ropes, they...
Are you guys, okay?
Snapping their collective attention to an owlish mezzo and tail-stiffened Mashiro, they shared a giggle, some of them rubbing the backs of their necks sheepishly. Sorry, Izuku was quick to offer, with Ochako, Tsuyu, and Tamaki nodding next to him. This is our first tournament, at this size. He covered up. Oh, the blonde tried, whilst he and their other new friend attempted to laugh along, 3 of his tentacled appendages morphing into mouths to do so. Anyway, come on, you guys, let's go sit over there at the front. Mirio cut in with his usual cheer, a smile to match dad mites lighting up his handsome features. Tamakun is going to be fighting first out of all of us, and he's going to be up against... let's see, he mused, his eyes moving to the brackets board, whilst he looped a compassionate arm about his best friend. His best friend who'd grown so much since Daphne found them. His best friend who was nowhere near as anxious. His best friend who was loved, included, and accepted by everyone they met at the Northern Echo. Oh! Blinking, his eyebrows furrowed, the oldest of their group tensed a little. Todoroki for Yumi!